Hey, Dr. Cantu, it's good to have you on. I'm super excited to be doing your Two Common Club interview and hearing about your journey through all that you've done throughout life, and then ultimately leading to doing $1 million in implant revenue and changing which is what it's all about, changing a lot of patients' lives. Congrats.
Thank you, Traden. Honored to be here with you, and honored to be part of the club. So it's exciting.
It really is an exclusive club, and really the Two Common Club, it's about all the hard work, all the dedication from yourself, from your team, and really all the patients' lives that you've transformed. I'd love to hear just your story. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Obviously, we've been working together for a few years now, but tell me about where you grew up and what kind of got you interested in dentistry in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up in Washington State. I live in Arizona now. My dad was a MD in Mexico, and so the healthcare was kind of always, whether I liked it or not, it was a discussion in our lives. And
Yeah.
I just remember with my grandpa and my dad killing some goats that we had back at home, and just opening them up and looking at the bodies, and he showed me these are the lungs, these are the hearts, and it was pretty cool. So it wasn't until a dentist came at my school, and he talked about his life. He talked about his family, and just how he was able to work with his hands and work on his creativity, and also be an entrepreneur, be a business owner. So all that seemed very appealing to me, and so I went to go shadow a dentist, and I was like, hey, I think this is something that excites me. So yeah, that's how it kind of got started.
That's awesome. And it's when that dentist talked to you about it when you were in school, what was it specifically about that kind of drew you to the field? Was it the lifestyle? Was it what specifically drew you in? And
Yeah.
let me ask you, do you still feel like that same draw today that maybe you felt then?
No, absolutely. Like I like drawing. I remember, drawing little pictures of Disney characters and Pokemon when I was younger, and so I knew I liked working with my hands and being artistic and creative. And when the dentist came in and he said, "Hey, you get to use your artistic side of yourself, and then also be able to own your own business." So my parents ended up, when Dad came to Mexico, he wasn't able to fulfill his medical career, and so he started a business in freight transport.
Okay.
And so I saw how owning a business and being an entrepreneur and the hustle and the highs and the lows of ownership. To me, I was just like, hey, if I could work with my hands and also be an entrepreneur and own my own business, choose my own hours, do the kind of dentistry that I want to do, and also have a great quality of life, to be with your family, that sounds for me. So that's really what kind of piqued me into that.
And I love that you mentioned that, because I think that and we were talking about this just a little bit before we started recording, but that balance, right, of work and family, it's so, you can't lose yourself so much into the work that you forget about, the things that are really important, right? The things that are going to be there, long term, which is your family, your kids, your spouse, and all that. So the doctor came in and he got you excited. Obviously, your dad played a big role in that too, with just what he was doing and his medical background and being a business owner. So from there, you graduate high school, you go on, you get your undergrad. Where did you go to dental school? And then talk to me about, moving into either your own practice, or were you an associate first, or would that look like?
Yeah, that's a little packed question there. So I'll just go from the beginning. So after high school, I worked as an assistant, as a dental assistant at a FQHC, they call them, which is a federally qualified health center.
Uh-huh.
And so for low income, because we lived out in the rural area, and so I really was able to get my feet wet. I shadowed and assisted 4 or 5 different doctors within that practice. I was able to just get immersed completely in dentistry, and I knew, like, hey, this is kind of what I want to do. So it just seems like, starting from high school, everyone said, hey, Dad obviously pushed, like, get good grades, get an education, and so that we can go to college and then go from there, right? And so it was always, it's the next step, what's next? And so, you strive to get good grades. You strive to, get into college, and you get into college. So I get accepted to the University of Washington on an academic scholarship. Played a little bit of football in high school too. Yeah, it was fun. But I knew football wasn't going to be a good long term. We won the state championship when I was as a junior quarterback, and I knew, yeah, let's go. I just had to throw that in there, but I knew that it wasn't going to be for me. It wasn't like a long term deal. It was just like something to build character, build leadership, and just to strive for something, right? And so obviously when I went to UW. I tried to walk on and that didn't work. So I was like, God knows that he wants me to, just pursue dentistry, and did that, and got married, proposed to my wife as a junior. Didn't know I was going to be accepted she was actually my high school sweetheart. So we knew each other. We were dating as freshmen. She was a junior, an eighth grader, and I was a freshman. And we've been dating since then. And then I knew, that's the woman that God wanted for me. And so proposed to her, and we got married my senior year. And I didn't know if I was going to get accepted to dental school yet. I had just put in my application, and I found out that we were pregnant too. So it was just like, a lot of pressure, but God works in mysterious ways, and he always provides. And so got accepted to Marquette. So from Washington State, clear over to Wisconsin, about, just away from being in an area where we knew everybody, we had tons of family, to going off on our own, being newlyweds, being new parents, and, new school. It's exciting, and yet, a little bit nerve-wracking, but it all worked out. We had 3 kids while we were down there, or over in Wisconsin, and I remember my classmates saying, Wally, they're like, how do you do it? I can barely take care of myself, man, and you're already having, kids. And so I got connected with some awesome people. I grew up with a lot of LDS friends down there, and so the LDS community had families, and so we just kind of merged well with them, and helped each other out, and just a great group of guys that I was able to bond with there in dental school. And so we graduated. While I was in dental school, I was always doing extra stuff, man. Like I was always, hanging out with the oral surgeons. I was always just trying to push myself, to learn something new and take more classes. I was a recipient for the cosmetic dentistry, the AACD, that they do every year, and so that kind of pushed me into the cosmetic stuff. But after I graduated, like every dental student, well, majority every dental student, is you got this pressure of loans, right? And so I was like, how am I going to pay for my loans? I could work private practice and kind of do a slow start, and you have room for upside of growth, but I kind of wanted something more secure, so I kind of started with this company that they would help pay for your student loans, right? And so they weren't going to pay for all of it, but it was a chunk. And so it wasn't the dentistry that I envisioned myself doing, because it was pediatrics, but I was making a lot of money to help pay down the loans, live on beans and rice, like Dave Ramsey says, rice and beans. And we just, our goal was to just pay off student debt, and we're able to do that in 3.5 years. And so, during awesome. And it was like, Marquette was, we almost graduated with, it was like 380,000. Okay. I think now dental school is $500,000 plus, man. It's getting crazy. Yeah. But from there, I knew I wasn't being fulfilled in my profession, kind of like what I wanted to do. And so while I was doing the pediatrics, I did CE training. I took a implant course down in Mexico where we were, placing implants on live patients, and did some other training through Dental XP, their dental implant, kind of like, it's like a fellowship. And so was able to do that, and I was like, I'm ready to do what I initially wanted to do, is to start my own office. And so I got out of there, worked for private practice for about a year, and I was moonlighting on weekends. Talk about trying to have a balanced life, man. Like my wife's like, you're working way too much, working on Saturdays, skipping on some Sundays too, and it was a lot. But I'm like, hey, you have to do. at every time in your life, there's you just got to do what you got to do. And then I knew that didn't want to do this long term. So when I started my practice, I did it de novo. So we just, we picked a spot there in the community that we live in. And, I went from seeing 40 patients a day because I was, doing pediatrics. It's different, right? It's not like it's adults. To seeing 2 patients a day, like back to dental school, because I'd see one patient in the morning, one patient in the afternoon. And that's how I was. I was sitting in my office and I was rolling my thumbs a lot. And I'm like, man, what did I get myself into? I'd call the phone just to make sure, the office phone, just to make sure it rung and it was working properly. I'm like, yeah, the phone's ringing, so it works. But it just takes time. It just takes time and persistence. And, we hustled. We went out to different businesses, handed business cards. And being a Hispanic, I attract a lot of the Hispanic community. And so we were like, okay, we need to network that and get into different agricultural farms that are there. And we did a lot of stuff. We went to, business, what do they call them? Fairs, career fairs and things like that.
Yeah.
And the teachers for the school districts, and it was good. And then little by little, it started taking off.
So you got your practice. It was pretty slow, and I love just the go-getter mentality, right? It's like, hey, I need more patients. So what am I going to do? I can sit here and not do anything, check the phone, or take action into your own hand and go to work, right? Which is what you did. I love that approach, and I love just doing something, right? Sometimes that's all that we need to do is just do something, and the results will follow. It's so easy for us. And I talk to a lot of dentists all the time that they're on the fence. I want to think about it. I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. I'm not sure if the team's ready for this. And sometimes it's just like, you got to take action. You have to jump with a little bit of a leap of faith, which is what you did for your practice.
Yeah.
So after you did that, talk to me just about your implant journey. So you took the courses, you started being able to place implants. We got connected back in 2023. Talk to me about just that journey, and then team structure and all that. Let's dive into the implant journey since you've been doing that with us.
I started placing implants as soon as I got into, the private practice, and I knew I loved it, and I was, asking the leader dentist or the owner, right, some feedback and how would you do this case? And he goes, Wally, I place implants, but not like what you're doing here. I really can't help you, with 3D printed guides and how to do this. Like it was out of his his comfort, and like he didn't know anything about it. And so you have to know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? Is what they say. And so it's really just you have to take CE. You have to take CE. You have to go out and do stuff. And so it was through the California Implant Institute, I learned how to place implants, and they're a great organization. And I encourage anyone who's wanting to learn to get into implants to take some. You have to take action, because it's not going to just come to you. You have to create your own future. But did that, and I was always surgically. I love doing surgery, and so that really just pushed my surgical envelope, and started. I remember my first all-on-4 case that I did, and man, it was like, one, I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this, and then two, you just learn so much from that first case. I'm like, I'm never doing this again, like, doing it this way, and it's just like with anything, like even with investments, right? You start analyzing things, and you say, but what if, and then and analysis paralysis is what they call it. And so it's the same thing for implants. It's like you can, think about all the potential things that can go wrong, and then making yourself not take action. And so you just have to jump into it and do it, obviously under your limits, but so you start with easy cases, and then you start doing bigger cases. But yeah, it's when we got connected with you guys, it's like we were doing a few implant cases a month, but I really wanted to get into the all-on-4s and just really hit it. because they're very productive procedures and they're very personally satisfying to be able to change somebody's life. And so you got to create your own future, right? And I just didn't want to sit and wait to get that 1 case a month, 2 cases a month type thing. And so I'm like, with DSOs coming in, and you got companies like Clear Choice, you got companies like Nuvia, and it's like you have to compete with them, and they're spending big dollars, to find these patients. And so as a private practice owner, you have to do something. And so that's when we got connected with you guys, and I'm glad we did, and we've had great success.
What's that journey been like? So obviously we've been working together for a while, right? And you've had a couple of different coaches and people that you've worked with over here on my team. How has what you were doing prior to working with us versus what you were doing now, how has that transformed from your team setup and even some of your operational processes? How has that transformed and progression gone for you?
Well, I definitely tell you that we're more intentional with everything that we do. Like before we were marketing, it was just like, hey, if they come in, and you do your consult, and it was just kind of like a sit back and wait to see approach, and you're never gonna grow that way, right? And so everything's intentional now, from how we talk to the leads coming in. We're gonna have a dedicated person talking to the leads coming in, someone that they call it the setter, right? Like the sets appointment, and then that's all they focus on, because you're paying a lot of money on marketing and for these patients, and if the phone isn't being picked up and within the first few minutes or hours, the likeliness of you converting that lead drops, right? And so we changed in the sense of we were more intentional, having a dedicated person now, which is for us is Marlene. And we've changed, because we've been with you guys for 3 years or so. We had one of I was the one first calling leads, and so I got to tell you a little bit about my situation. So I moved here to Arizona, right? And so we started Dental Implant Machine.
It's 2022, right?
Probably, yeah.
I think it was, I said 23, but I meant to say 2022. I think it was the end of 22 is when we started, right? Somewhere around that time frame. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I remember making phone calls in January of that year, and then I moved to Arizona from Washington, Arizona, like in June. And so, I'm only doing dentistry 1 week a month when I go to Washington State. And so we really had to figure out, okay, how are we gonna do these consults with me not being there? And so then we started involving virtual consultations. And so I would be, my team the setter would make the appointments, get the patients in, and then that assistant, we went from me making the appointments with the patients to, hey, my time's more valuable with somebody else doing this, and me kind of focusing, because I was running my practice over here in Scottsdale and in Arizona as well. And so now the assistant would make the appointments. That same assistant would see the leads come in, and so they were already familiarized, and they had already talked about more or less pricing, you know what I mean, on that, and kind of already walked them through. So when they're in, it's already a more comfortable procedure for them, because usually when someone goes to the dentist for a consult, they don't know who this person is, they don't know the office, there's no relationship yet built. And so having those phone calls beforehand, those virtual meetings, would help build that rapport already ahead of time. And then, we would do the consults virtually. So I'd be on the computer and I'd meet with them there at the office. And we just had to kind of rethink a little bit to make it work for my situation, right?
Yeah.
And it worked. And, patients were coming in, and then we went from, my assistant's so good at doing these consults now that I don't really have to be there, other than just see the x-rays and the photos afterwards. And if it was a complicated case, I'd get in touch with them and do a Zoom call, or if they really wanted to talk to the doctor. But it's been good. And we're working with third-party companies like Proceed and CareCredit, and that really helps out. And so you had to have a dedicated closer to go over the finances, because that does take some time to do, and to follow up, and it's like everything is just more intentional. That's how I would say it. There's a purpose for everything.
Yeah, and you said something right there that I want to touch on, which is, you said the word closer, which implies sales, right?
Yeah.
And I know in in just the dentistry community, the word sales it's a bad word. It's a word that people look on negatively. I want to correct that a little bit, and I also want to hear your opinion on it. When we think of sales, we think of sales as something that you do to somebody. So it's like you're imposing your will, or you're making somebody do something that they don't want to do themselves.
Yeah.
When I think of sales, and that is one way to look at it, and we have felt that from the car salesman type approach of like super super high pressure. That's the complete opposite approach. I personally believe is the way to approach this. Sales, in my opinion, is something you do for somebody, especially these all in four cases or all in X cases. If they truly understood what could happen to them if they don't make a change, they would make it. They're like, logic is completely thrown out, because if they were acting on logic, they would have done something a long time ago about it, right? And so, sales in dentistry is something that we do to educate and help a patient
Absolutely.
make the right decision so that they can move forward with treatment and frankly improve their life. But I want to hear from you. What you said, closer, so I want to hear your opinion on it, since you're in the community and you talk to people and these patients all the time, and your team does.
Yeah, we haven't really used that word until maybe the last, couple years, because, it's not just about getting the patients into the office. It's really a process of giving them all the information that they need to make an informed decision. We didn't pull their arms. I tell my team to come here, to see us. They came on their own will. They gave a $50 deposit to come and see us and get the information to see if this is something that they want and that they need. And so, we were having some leads come in, and then just, we'd give them, they do the consult, and then we wouldn't hear from them, right? And so it was just like, hey, something there went wrong. Either we didn't build enough trust with them, they were unsure about the process. Whatever information that we gave them, it was something that was stopping them from making a comfortable decision to move forward. And so when we talk about closing, it's just being able to give the patient all that information, making them feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I would like to do business with you guys. And we talk about, when we close, it means that we're putting more good into the community, because we're helping somebody change, their life. It's a big decision. It's a big decision for someone to spend thousands of dollars and to have someone work on their mouth, and because it's their, permanently, essentially, right? And so it's not an easy decision for for a patient to accept the treatment and decide that they want to do it. And so, yeah, I think it's, when we say closing, it's just helping people out. Helping, that means that we did our job of making them feel comfortable through the entire process to want to do this with us.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do everything correctly, the patient's going to say yes, right? If you give them the information that they need, help them understand their current situation and the risk that they have if they maintain their current situation, that it's much better for them if they make that decision, right? And obviously,
Yeah.
never forcing somebody into something that doesn't make sense, something that, I've heard of providers that will try and force somebody into an all next solution when that's really not what's best for the
Yeah.
patient. And so really just giving the patient ultimately what is best for them
Yeah.
is, that's what dentistry, that's what it's all about, is helping the patient improve their situation. So
I think we're different in that, because we've had multiple patients, Chaden, come in and say, like, I went to an office. I'm not gonna say names, right? But
yeah,
it's one of the big
of course.
corporate ones, and they said, I just felt like I was at a car lot,
Yeah.
and they were selling me on this car that I didn't, overpriced, and I didn't. They were pushing it on me, they said. And so when they came to our office, they said, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel the pressure sales deal. And again, it's doing it in a way that you're letting the patient make the decision, not you wanting the procedure more than the patient wants it. You know what I mean? And so I agree with all that.
Yeah, I love that. And that's, I hear that same thing all the time, especially from some of these bigger offices, the big corporate ones, especially. Those are, it does feel like that. And that's the common feedback.
They have higher overhead, I feel, because it's a bigger team, right? And they spend tons of money on marketing. So I get it. I get it. But I think that's what separates us from those types of offices.
And I think that's important to point out too, because in this ever competing market, I think that there is a question of, can the little guy still compete with these big giants that are spending, six-figure budgets on marketing, sometimes greater, right, on a monthly basis? And the simple answer is absolutely you can, because that patient experience, that individual personalized patient experience, they cannot replicate that. That's unique to you and your office, and they can't do that because your buy-in as an owner, especially, is so much different than somebody who's multiple times removed from that patient. So, anyways, okay, so I always love to ask your favorite smile transformation story. Do you have a patient that comes to mind that it's like, this is the, whenever I think of somebody, I know I personally have one, but do you have somebody that comes to mind? Let's hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. It's one of our very first cases that we
Yeah.
did, and it was a lady that came from an hour and a half away. I spoke to her over the phone first, and I could just hear all these, through the conversation, I could hear all these barriers that she was kind of making herself not talking herself out of coming in, essentially. And so it was
Yeah.
really it was a challenging consult over the phone, and just trying to knock down those walls that she's built up for so many years because of mistrust of dentists, pain, embarrassment, just all of these, finances, all these things. And so we did the virtual consult. So I did a Zoom with her, and that we went from the phone consult to the Zoom consult. So she goes, "Okay, Dr. Cantu," after we're done, she goes, I think I'm gonna go and see you. And so she met us. She experienced the difference at our office, loved our staff, and man, her transformation is incredible. She went from having three teeth on top on one side, three teeth on the other side on the bottom, and when she ate, I mean, it was just like this
Yeah.
bulldog type of face, to her looking seriously like a model. Like, this lady just could not stop smiling, changed her life completely. She said, "Dr. Cantu, you changed my perception of what going to the dentist is, and my confidence level is just through the roof." And she isn't afraid to let you know how good she looks. She's just an
Love that.
awesome lady.
Yeah.
And she says, "I'm dating again. You just completely changed my life." So it's just one of those things, like, man, dentistry is tough.
Yeah.
And you have your good days and your bad days, and on your bad days, you're like, man, it's hard on you. But when you have cases like this, it's just like, it makes it all worth it.
That's what it's all about, right? It's all about changing that patient's life. That's why I love implant dentistry and these all next treatments. There's nothing, I mean, very few things in life can make that big of a transformation to somebody, almost overnight, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it is amazing to be able to be a part of that with you and your team. I have to ask, if
Yes.
somebody obviously we've been working together for a while, and I know you do a number of things with us. If somebody was looking into using Dental Implant Machine, what do you feel like you'd tell them? And then I want to also ask, I'm going to ask a follow-on question to that, but what would you tell somebody
Yeah.
who is looking into Dental Implant Machine and maybe on the fence or not sure what they should do?
So, I mean, if they're looking into dental implant machine, they're obviously interested in growing their practice with dental implants. And you guys are reputable. You have, a great staff. Your team members are always, we work with Colson and Steve, and they've been, whenever we need something, they've always been there. So you got a great, support system there with dental implant machine, and you guys are, your guys' platform that you use just takes, you know, marketing, at least for our office, it redesigned it for us, and it just made everything intentional. We had a process for everything, and it really forces you to learn and adapt and change things in a positive way. So I would say, from the many companies that we've used, I mean, we've had some horror stories with marketing companies. And so we've been really, really happy. And I would just say, don't overthink it. Give them a try. Do it for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, and just see how it goes.
I love that, and I appreciate you sharing that. The one last question I wanted to ask you was, as we've been working together and the market has changed and fluctuated quite a bit from when you first started with us to where it's at now, but obviously there's still success happening, right? Every single day, there's still plenty of opportunities there that are out there, and more patients are becoming aware of this all neck solution. What do you feel like if you were to give a dentist one piece of advice of like, hey, if you did this one thing, it would help make the biggest difference for you? And that could be one thing for you. It doesn't obviously need to be the same thing for everybody, but I'm interested in what that might be for you and what your thoughts are there.
I mean,
Putting you on the spot.
no, there's so many things, right? You can go as far as, from education, personal education, to investing in your office, right? For training, because I think that's a good thing to do, because a lot of doctors, I mean, let's face it, as a private practice, everything, you don't have the budget, the big spending budgets that, big corporates, offices do, but you're only as good as your team. You can't do everything, and that's something that I learned. Like, I can't make all the phone calls. I can't do all the consults. I can't follow up with the patients and close. You really need a dedicated team and invest in them, invest in training with them. Yes, it does take time. Like, now we're getting into a virtual assistant, to be on, on the calls and just be dedicated. You're just always changing. You're always, modifying things. And so, we're going through training with her. And I would just say, yes, you could spend more marketing money. Yes, you can do more training on yourself, but really invest in your team, because no matter how great Dental Implant Machine is on providing leads for you, if your team, the people who are having contact with the patient, whether by phone or at the office, isn't at a high level, then you're really just kind of spending money. You're wasting dollars, essentially. And so that would be my recommendation, is invest in your team.
Man, I appreciate that. I think spoken well by a high school quarterback champion right there of investing in the team, right? I mean, honestly, that's probably a something with you, just who you are as a person. The fact that you could have gone anywhere with that question, but the fact that you went to the team, I think that speaks volumes about your character and who you are as a leader in your practices. So, Dr. Cantu, it was awesome. Oh, I want to share one more thing.
Sure.
It's a secret, and I'm going to share. It's actually one of your secrets that Steven told me that I want to share.
Okay.
He told me, and I don't know if this is still true, but he told me at some point that you guys are so dedicated that even yourself, on your drive home from the office, that you will be making calls to these patients to try and get them in and try and get them scheduled.
Oh,
I mean,
my gosh, man.
that is dedication, right? I mean, you're trying to change somebody's life. If you're not willing to be dedicated, how can I expect my team members to do the same thing, right? How can I expect them? Is that true? Are you still doing that? Probably not, or are
I
you?
still do it, man. It's just I have an hour drive from work, from Scottsdale to where I live, and so I'm like, what could I be doing right now? And that's why we're going more towards the VA to have her help out with more phone calls. But yeah, even just we had a Facebook lead. It wasn't with you guys, but it was just some Facebook leads that I do on my own, and I'm like, why not? It's like 5 minutes, and he's like, I'm surprised that you're calling me right now at 7:00 at night. It was after I was picking my daughter. Yeah. So they're surprised a lot of times, like, the type of level of care that they get, from us. And so, but it's all about, helping people out, man. That's what it is.
Absolutely. It's all about transforming lives, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, well, Dr. Cantu, it was awesome talking to you, doing the interview. Again, congratulations on the Two Comma Club. So much dedication and so many lives transformed during that. And
absolutely.
Let's go get another one.
Okay. Thanks, Jaden, for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.